Okay, I'm just going to flip my phone in a second. Hold on one second. Hey, Black people in cryptocurrency. This is Deidre McIntyre. Sorry about that. I had my phone on regular mode and it was facing outward. And I was like, oh, why can't I see myself? Got a little confused for a minute. As usual, we tune in early with the live streams to kind of go over a little housekeeping to welcome the new members. We have now reached over 4,000 members, 4,032 as I'm looking at it right now. And a great deal of that has happened in the month, believe it or not, end of November, I guess from Thanksgiving through now. I'd say about the membership had doubled from the 2,000 mark. So in less than a month, there's been 2,000 additional people. So we like to remind people that definitely you should be going and reading the pin post. This goes for any Facebook group that you join. You need to look at the pin post and see if there are any rules in terms of posting. Generally, the different admins in the group, if we see a solicitation, we will delete it. This group is supposed to be a discussion group. It's supposed to be an informational group. It's not supposed to be a group where you should be trying to get referrals for any of the cryptocurrency programs that you're involved in. If somebody contacts you behind the scene, that's another matter. You know, you have a private discussion with someone that happens to be in the group and the two of you want to talk business, that's fine. Eventually, we're going to move in the direction that we're actually going to offer projects to the group. The risk you assume is your own. We're not financial advisors, but we've been hit behind the scenes with a number of interesting projects that we may want to bring more formally to the group. But as of now, this is not the group. There was someone who left the group a couple of days ago after he found out he couldn't solicit in the group. I mean, that's fine. You find or start a solicitation group and all you're going to do is post solicitations. The main objective of this group is, for now, this main group is educational, telling people what cryptocurrencies are, encouraging them to read the guidebook that we've created. And I know it needs to be updated, but there's a guidebook that we have within the group that offers free information on the background of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and as well as how to acquire it independently of any type of network alliance, how to acquire it if you don't want to use Coinbase, how to acquire it if you want to use Coinbase. So we're giving people roundabout options because your personal decision is up to you. And you're going to get an idea of the different people and how they acquired cryptocurrency. So, you know, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about within the group should be related to any type of service or platform that people may not know about. I think a lot of people, because of the referral links, automatically go to Coinbase, but you can't then complain that Coinbase is overrun. Coinbase was reported, I think, by Eduardo Jackson. I hopefully had the right person that reported this, that said that there was an article that stated that Coinbase had 300,000 new members during the weekend of Thanksgiving alone. So within a 4-day period, they acquired 300,000 new accounts. That's going to slow down any business. And then the fallout is the other exchanges that people know about, whether it's Binance or Bitfinex or anything else. Those too, and even Shapeshift, those are going to, because the more seasoned people are going to say, you know what, let me move some Litecoin off of Coinbase and use some of the other exchanges. Well, the growth rate is nothing that any of these ventures, whether they're a community or an actual corporation, is nothing that they had anticipated. So a lot of times, don't be surprised if we don't have an answer as to why Binance is slow or why Coinbase is slow. All we can say is that a lot of these people, Shapeshift, they're being inundated by the pace. If you look at the pace, just from November till now, actually probably a month back, October or September, the growth has been tremendous. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the mainstream media has been reporting. Now, whether they've been reporting because they're saying the angle is that it's a scam, or they've been reporting because they've had some people that have been long-time developers in the space and they're trying to explain what it is. The American media has now finally started doing a lot more reporting that they've ever done before. And main reason I kind of know about it is because I went to a holiday party with some of my friends, and one of the guests was going to be late. She had to pick up something, and she was like, "Don't start the Bitcoin talk without me, because my husband wants to invest or whatever." So people are seeing a lot of things in the media that has called. So we have too few platforms for people to actually acquire, and as far as legally within the United States. So there are a lot of slowdown questions that we really don't have any answer to, other than saying that you need to contact Coinbase directly, or you need to contact Bitfinex directly, or you need to contact Binance directly and see what's going on. The same is true with your bank. I mean, I think a good protocol with dealing with banks, because people who've been in it long term have had some issues with their banks kind of refusing the little penny drop that little PayPal used to do. So Coinbase is doing the same thing to verify that you're the account holder. And some banks have higher security than others. I think many of you may have experienced it in absence of cryptocurrency, where that you have. I see you, Sinclair. I'm going to add you in a quick second. Let's see if I can send you an invite while I'm talking. They will add let's see. Oh, it's not working. One second. Sinclair, if you can see, if you're on the phone, you may be able to see an icon where you can send me a request. I'm trying to see if I can find something where I can send you a request. Let's see, one second. Gotta brighten things up. That was the wrong thing. Let's see if I can figure out. I see you, Sinclair. Let me know if you can see the icon. There should be a request that you can send to me. You're on your MacBook. If there is not an icon, let's see. Hold on. We'll go to Plan B. Just one second. I just want to check. They keep adding more and more of these little things. So I am on my phone. We're probably going to revert to Plan B, which is because I can see the inset. It says I have my request on. Allow viewers to send you a request or to join your broadcast. You can add them at any point. I'm going to turn it off and turn it back on. And what we'll do is we're going to revert to Plan B. So I'm going to give you a call by way of Facebook Messenger, and I'll just flip the phone. So just to finish my thought while I am reaching out to Sinclair, if you're going to start a Coinbase account, just call your bank in advance. I'm going to do this. Is there going to be a problem? There's nothing wrong with doing that. Buying cryptocurrency is not illegal. The risk is your own. So maybe that's a stopgap to, let me do this full screen. 1 second. Open in Messenger. That may be a stopgap to some of you having problems with Bank of America and some of the more conservative banks that kind of really monitor quite a bit. So let me do the phone call. Sorry, I clicked out by accident. Messenger. Full screen. Open in Messenger. And I am going to call. Okay, so it's kind of loud. Let me turn it down a little bit. And let's reverse it. Hello. You know what? Let me turn off this light so I can get this light out of your face. That's better. How you doing?
Good. How you doing?
The light's still not working. Hold on. I've got some kind of, maybe that's my flash. Hold on. Let me turn up the flash.
Get this light out of your
Face. That's better.
How you doing?
Yes.
Oh, it's a little delay. Hold on. Let me turn off my, I've got a little flash thing going on. Let me see if I can fix that. Ah, fixed it. One button. How you doing? All right. So I'm glad to have you on. I spoke with, I don't know, there's a little delay. I think it's going to repeat what I'm going to say in a minute. But I'm glad to have you on. I spoke with another person the other day, and we did the interview with Eduardo Jackson, and I said that he was one of the first people that I found in terms of black people in Bitcoin. But you were certainly the second, because you know, they often say that the American writer James Patterson is the most prolific writer on the American scene because of that I found feedback in terms of black people in.
Hello?
Yeah, I got you. All right, it's a little. I don't know why there's a little feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm trying. This is very interesting that I'm looking at it live, but I'm delayed in talking, and I'm trying to figure out.
My thing is, don't look at the live stream. Just look at me, because there's a delay on when it actually appears on Facebook. There's kind of like a lag time. So if you're just going through Messenger, and then we can do the stream later.
Gotcha.
It's funny, Jacqueline Taylor Adams, who introduced us virtually, she found the button. She's like, click to bring me in on the conversation. So it's Facebook is kind of, they changed some things. When we first started doing these live streams, it was because they had the technology to do face and face. They pulled it from the web platform, so now you can't do it by way of website. And then some phones can do it, and some phones can't do it. So it's been kind of a little bit aggravating for us. So we kind of worked this little hack around. But what I was saying was that Eduardo Jackson was the first person I found on black people, and you were the second. And they say that James Patterson, the author, is probably the most prolific writer in America, mainly because of the amount of books that he can produce every year, which is about 50, because he basically has an engine that has co-writers. If that's the case, you are probably the most prolific businessman who's been interviewed. There's such a wealth of content, and our community, unfortunately, still is new to you. But when you search your name, you search Sinclair Skinner, you can find interview after interview and get an idea of what's going on. And we want to kind of add to that volume so that people get to know BitMari and understand, because this group is a beginner's group, but it's not so much, I don't want to have so much of a conversation of, what is Bitcoin? What is it? I want to talk about BitMari. How did that company come about? What are your services? And, why should people be looking towards using BitMari?
Look, my co-founder is here too. I wanted to give you a quick twofer. He was about to head out, but I said, we're doing this interview, and I had to have my mentor come on. This is Mr. Christopher Mapendera.
Hi, Mr. Christopher. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much.
Good. So definitely tell us get right into the company. What is BitMari? How did it come about, and what services do you provide?
All right. I think one of the big things that's amazing about BitMari is that we're probably one of the few startups where you have an indigenous African co-founder and an African American co-founder. And it really goes to the heart of what we talk about as a Pan-African company, where we're trying to bring together the diaspora, utilizing Bitcoin blockchain technology to connect us for financial transactions. So fundamentally, we're a financial platform that's actually facilitating these diaspora transactions, and we're using Bitcoin wallet where it's free. You can hold, send, receive Bitcoin through us. We have a partner, Uphold, where you can buy Bitcoin, Litecoin, Dash, and a host of other coins. And we have a cash out feature for our users in Zimbabwe that we're about to expand to several other African countries, where you actually can take a number of cryptocurrencies and actually use that to send money to people where they can pick it up in their country. So we look at Bitcoin as a solution to problems that we're facing as a community. And we've been operating since June of 2015. And Mr. Mapindera and I have been doing business for now over 10 years. We both went to Howard University. In my first trips abroad to Zimbabwe, we've been working on projects from ethanol projects to cotton and a host of other things. And we saw this technology as a great solution to many of the cross-border transactional problems. And it's specifically our Black community has been plagued with some of the highest rates to use our own money. And we've been exploited by this legacy bank system. So what we're trying to do is basically hack the current financial system with something that works better, in much the way that people look at ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft and others, where we used to get treated so poorly by so many people in the taxi industry. We were able to hack that whole industry by using rideshare. But we think the blockchain could hack a lot of the issues that we're facing as a people in the financial system.
Now, you were able to form partnerships with the central banks within Zimbabwe. How has that relationship been working? And do you think that's a model that other countries should be looking at in terms of, there seems to be a little bit more of a resistance in other places to partner with Bitcoin technology?
Well, I think what happens is there's large international companies like a Barclays, even the stuff that you're seeing with a Bank of America. These companies are benefiting from a legacy system that is antiquated, doesn't work well, but they've invested a lot of money into it. So when you talk about doing something faster, easier, cheaper, these organizations are some of the last ones to change. And just like you see in America, the banking system controls our politicians. If you go to Kenya and Zimbabwe and a number of African countries, you don't have to use an ATM or a credit card. You actually can use your mobile money. You actually can use your mobile phone and it's connected with money where you can now use that instead of a bank account. So just imagine next time you pay your cell phone bill. Suppose instead of just paying it, you actually added an additional $100 into it. Now, anytime you go to a merchant, you can take that $100 that you put into your cell phone account and use it to pay for a service by just giving a code into your phone. And this is something that can be used even on a basic phone. You don't have to have a smartphone. That's the technology that's already available. And the reason why we don't see things like that in America is because our banking system is and regulations for the banking system are controlled by the bankers. We got the foxes guarding the hen house. So in that situation, you're not going to necessarily see the innovations, and you might see the regulatory people taking a slower approach because the people who are lobbying and basically influencing the system are tied to an old model. Now in Zimbabwe, they've been a country that's actually gone through a lot of changes. And one of the things they were able to do is back in 2009, when they had hyperinflation, they actually got rid of their own currency and adopted a multi-currency regime where they actually use the pound, they use the rand, they use the US dollar, they use a host of different currencies. So we thought that was a great opportunity to say, you know what, they might be willing to adopt some level of digital currency. And so far, they've not. We physically do not trade Bitcoin inside of Zimbabwe, but what their government has allowed us to do, or their reserve bank has allowed us to do, is they've allowed us to use Bitcoin as a means to transfer money into their country. So someone with Bitcoin outside of Zimbabwe can use that Bitcoin to send somebody money in Zimbabwe. This is an actual use case. Okay. And I bring up that use case to say that so often I hear so many Black folks that are getting introduced to cryptocurrency, they're talking about the speculative value and which token is going up. We spent several years in this space and, trying to get more of our members of our community involved. and it was very disappointing at times. But I knew this day would come. But now the disappointment is that more people are trying to figure out which token is going to increase in value next, and which one's not. They're saying there's a new technology that's going to be able to help us solve the problems in our community. And we got, as Black folks, we got plenty of problems. Mm-hmm. So if we're not technology to help get our people out of the condition they're in, what we say is either you're collaborating with our oppression or you're complicit unless you're trying to do something about it. So again, we think that this technology has many use cases that have not been explored, and we need more members of our community to look at this technology not as some speculative .com bubble, but actually, just like you were saying with the internet, figure out how to use the internet technology to solve problems in our community. And I think that's a good analogy. It's just like when the internet first came out and they had .com bubbles, people were investing in these .coms. At that time, instead of investing, we really should have been trying to be makers. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, some of these .coms aren't going to make it. They're going to bust. But if we were actually building our own entities and solving our own problem, even if we're not successful, mm-hmm. that work in trying to solve our problem could be the actual foundation for someone else that comes along and takes that knowledge that you had to go through and build on top of that. But if we're just speculating on other folks' projects, we're actually missing out on the real, incredible period of time we are in this blockchain space. We're in a very early period, just like, again, with the internet, and we should be makers. We shouldn't be just users. And a lot of these tokens are doing what they call pump and dump. I've been in this space long enough to see the whole altcoin movement that happened in like 2014, and I lost money at it. So I'm not talking because I'm so smart that I didn't get involved. Back when they were calling them altcoins, I got involved and lost, tens of thousands of dollars, because what people would do is, and what a lot of us don't know, a lot of these so-called Bitcoin outlets, media outlets that are supposed to be experts, many of those outlets are invested in some of these coins, and they're pumping them. They're putting articles out telling you how bad one thing is and telling you how good another is. And people think that, wow, they're experts. They must know. And then they look at the value of the coin. Oh yeah, I need to go. It's on this exchange. That must mean it's a good coin. No, this is not the SEC. Look, all this stuff is a lie. You have to do your research. At the end of the day, these people are all trying to make money off you. And if you are gullible enough not to realize that there's people with schemes that they put their coins on top of these exchanges, and the exchanges make money when they sell and buy, and even if the coin ain't worth a darn, the exchange makes money anyway. So to tell me BitConnect and some of these other frauds are out there Ponzi scheming us, that somehow they're real because they got a token, or real because they're on exchange. No, we have to use discernment. We can't let the system keep pimping us. We keep looking for somebody to save us. They're not coming. So stop. So when I say that, I say Bitcoin has the largest network effect. No matter what altcoin you talk about, you're going to have to figure out how to get to Bitcoin oftentimes to get to that. And that's including Ethereum. Yep. Which still hasn't proven itself. I'm not knocking Ethereum. These are all projects that people are working on. And we should be working on our projects. Some of our projects are going to fail. BitMari is a super amazing company. What we're doing is great, but we may not make it. So what? This is what we're going to do today. When this technology come out, we're going to make sure our people know about it, and we're going to leverage that technology to solve problems in our community. That's win or lose.
One of my co-admins, who we always have two admins working on a chat. So he is actually doing summaries of what you're saying, and he kind of lost himself. He was like, facts. I was like, Bob, he didn't say facts, but he said facts, so he's co-signing. But there's a conception that's going on in the group. I've seen it repeated a couple of times. Can you speak on the conception that somehow, if you have a wallet running on a phone, or you have something going on in a phone that is less secure than these hardware wallets? Because I think there's a conception going on that is it's primarily in our community, because I'm in other groups where I'm like, one of the lone black people there, but there's this repeated theme. Oh, you don't want a phone wallet. You don't want a phone wallet. It's not secure. You'll get hacked. So as a wallet developer, can you give us some perspective on that type of conception?
All right. So at the end of the day, the bottom line is you want to control your private keys. So when you have your wallet on a number of these exchanges, they're controlling your private keys. We got into this thing for self-determination and sovereignty. We want control. So you can take your private keys all the way off the grid by putting it on a USB stick, and there's a number of great hardware wallets out there. There are reputable exchanges that all have been hacked, but the blockchain hasn't been hacked. When you have your information on your phone and you control your private keys, we think that's the best way to approach it among many ways. The most secure way to do it, though, is to actually put it on that USB all the way off the grid, period. Now, the problem with that is being able to use your Bitcoin in a very efficient and effective way, or traveling with that information. You might want to leave that at home and lock it up in a safe. When you're using a cold wallet on your phone, it gives you a mixed opportunity to now make sure that you have your Bitcoins where you have custodial control, no one else has it, as well as giving you access to it when you need to use it. And you can't be blocked. So let me just say this. So if you're using one of the exchanges to hold your keys and you're traveling, you're doing something, or if their system is down, you can't get access to your Bitcoin. Now, you said they were your Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Now, if they're your Bitcoin, why can't you get to them? Well, that's because the company actually has control of your Bitcoin. And they, in a weird way, they're actually their Bitcoin. And they give you access to them. And that might be fine with you, because the benefit of that is if something happens and you lose information or you lose your password, these hot wallets, they can actually give you a new password and you can get back access to their system, because they got control of your private keys. If you use any of these cold wallets like ours on your phone, or the ones that you actually store offline, in those cases, if you lose or don't know your information, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And you'll be in big trouble. And what we say to people, sovereignty and self-determination has responsibility. Massa ain't going to tell you where to go and where to eat and how to get there. You're going to have to do that. You got to be your own bank now. Visa and Bank of America aren't going to tell you, how to back up your system. You're going to have to back it up. But we think that level of independence and sovereignty and control is worth it. If we're going to create a new world where, our people don't have to suffer like they do every day, we're going to have to take responsibility, because the people who have been responsible for this society really been very toxic, and they've traumatized us a lot with the wicked things they've done. And again, no one's going to come save us. So with that being the case, I'd rather take the responsibility of keeping up with my private keys than having someone else control it. I had a good friend who was traveling in Africa, and he went to use his wallet that was through one of these major exchanges. I'm not going to say any names. And when he tried to use it, they blocked it. He couldn't get to his Bitcoin. Mm. And one of the reasons he had actually gotten to Bitcoin is because he traveled a lot. And he thought it would be something interesting to have. Supposedly he couldn't get to some other type of currency. He had Bitcoin, and he could use it. Well, since he didn't have custodial control of his Bitcoin, they blocked him. He had to wait and come back to the United States and then complain. He tried to reach him while he was out of the country. They didn't, I guess, it was tough for him to get through. My point is, if you download a BitMari wallet and you got your Bitcoins on that, BitMari ain't going to stop you from using it. None of these exchanges are going to stop you from using it. That's for you to use. And once you get into the cryptocurrency, it's your business. The biggest issue that we have and many other folks have, and that's why you've been talking about banks and whatnot, is that, these regulatory systems control the fiat currency. So all of these entities, including BitMari, we have to do a very rigorous, what they call know your customer. They call it KYC, but I don't like acronyms because they try to use them to kind of throw people off. But it's know your customer, KYC, or AML, anti-money laundering laws. Well, we're black in America. We know darn well if you was living in the 80s and 90s, all them drugs that came into America and all the money that's being spent on cocaine and everything else, that if they got all these rules, why do we got all these drugs in our neighborhood?
Right.
And then if they blocking people's suspicious activity, why was my brother on crack?
Right.
I know damn well no one checked any of the crack dealers for their KYC. So, and it wasn't just a couple of them. It was a whole nation full of it. So when I hear people bring up KYC, I respect it, and I think it's the right thing to do. But I know darn well that much of this is a lie. At the end of the day, the amount of drugs that we have in America, if we really were doing a real KYC and anti-money laundering laws, there's no possible way there could be drugs in America.
Yeah,
because that amount of cash that's moving from illicit and illegal activities would be checked by Bank of America, who's giving you a hard time opening up. So is it really about knowing your customer, or they just don't want cryptocurrency to undermine the current system?
Yeah,
because the drug dealers are using somebody to move this money.
If they were concerned with that, and you have to realize that more salons, hair salons, nail salons, whatever barbershops in this country is not actually by black people. It's just the mainstream in general. If the mainstream in general is white people, a lot of these are cash-owned businesses. And if a bank is willing to accept them as a customer and accept that, somehow or another, magically a salon could do more heads of hair than anybody could do in a week, but accept that that's the cash they made cutting hair, the same laws are not necessarily apply. I mean, we've got to do it because we know that we're constantly held to a different standard because we're fodder for their prison system. So we're held to a different standard. So if we're doing a company, you better have an AMA and a KYC answer to that, because we know that they've been allowed to get away with a lot of stuff. There's no bank in the United States of America that has refused an all cash business as a customer. Yeah, so and they're not questioning those numbers either.
Here, sister, and that's our point is that we have an understanding of the system that allows us to operate in a way that we think is more effective than many of the other folks. Some people believe in the lie. We're awake and we're clear that's a lie, and we're using our knowledge and understanding of our community and the environment that we've existed in to build something that we think is transformational. We think that blockchain is just the infrastructure that we're building through BitMari, but fundamentally our goal is to link African people in the diaspora from the Caribbean to the United States to Africa in a way that we can actually exchange and build businesses and invest and develop in a way that couldn't be done before the advent of this technology. We want to reverse the triangle of trade. We think if we can connect folks using the blockchain to do business, that we can get investors, African Americans in the United States, to actually help build farms and businesses on the continent. And vice versa, the brothers and sisters on the continent can give us business opportunities that we never would have had access to, and investment opportunities we would have never had access to in America. So we don't look at this in some paternal way or some weird way. There are incredible indigenous African professionals on the ground in Africa who need access to markets and capital. And there are incredible African Americans on the ground in the States who need opportunities for investment and better ways to live their lives. And we think that we can use this technology to reconnect. At the end of the day, we think the movement of money should go to zero. Ultimately, that's what we see as the bottom line. Even though we have a remittance component to our wallet where people can cash out and send money, we fundamentally believe that the real money should be made on actually adding value. We need to be able to connect you as an African American person to a great investment opportunity in Zimbabwe or some other country, and you'll be willing to pay us to do it. So at the end of the day, we don't have to make money off a bunch of fees hitting you all over the head. At the end of the day, the fact that we identified an incredible farm where they're growing macadamia nuts, and you see that as a great business opportunity, and now you can be able to transact with them using smart contracts as well as digital currency. This could be a great model for us to build a community beyond these borders. And we got to be clear, these African borders were not created by African people. They were created by the colonizers. So again, our catchphrase is decolonize your life. Too often we normalize the oppression that we live in. Even the stuff we've been seeing recently happening to women in our society. We all know and seen as men things that have been done to our sisters that's unacceptable. But we normalize it. We act like it's okay. It's never been okay. But see, again, we're participating in this oppression. We got to say, stop. Enough's enough. And so at the end of the day, if this financial system is oppressive, we got to say enough's enough. If the educational system ain't educating your kids, enough is enough. If this job ain't giving you what you need to live, enough's enough. These relationships ain't right, enough's enough. And this technology that can give us access to opportunities to do so. And I'm not saying this technology is something to worship. I'm not praying to the almighty blockchain. I play with one God. I don't need a book necessarily to do that. I'm telling you that at the end of the day, we need to figure out how to leverage the tools we have at our disposal to actually change the conditions that we understand. And at BitMari, we asked our people that work for us and work with us to have two things. We expect them to have cultural competency, meaning you have to understand our people and the things they're going through to understand their problem. And we need to have technical competency so we can create the proper solutions to solve those problems.
Anita, who is watching, wants to know why are Africans creating their own blockchains? Is there anything we should know about in terms of that development?
No, there are plenty of projects that are attempting to get started on the continent. The problem on the continent of Africa, again, we're talking about still being colonized. Much of the technology is still controlled by the former colonizer. At the end of the day, many of our best and brightest minds on the ground in Africa are being drawn out to Europe and other places, and those brilliant minds are being used to continue and build the current system of oppression. Many of those young brothers and sisters don't have the option because of financial situations to actually build something just for themselves. So I'll go to startups or different tech hubs in Africa, and they're building things to make Facebook better instead of actually solving the problem right down the street. Like as black people, and this is not just on the continent, in America.
Right.
We got enough problems to solve. And we don't need to look like, when I hear people with these startups that sound crazy, like, I'm going to come up with a new Facebook where we can, no, listen, easy. Look, we still getting brothers and sisters getting their heads blown off by the police, the government. Now, if you're not trying to solve our problems, you probably the problem. You're either complicit or you're a collaborator. We got enough problems to solve. So I would just say to the sister that, yes, there's brilliant and amazing brothers and sisters on the continent. They have projects, but the ones that actually end the colonial situation aren't funded by the former colonizer.
Okay, well, just so you know, as you're moving forward between this group, there's also a secret group called Crypto Culture. There's another group called, there's a Canadian group, I forgot what it is, the Toronto Ninjas. There are a lot of people that are in that group that have spanned out to aggregate people to create master nodes from Dash clones and stuff. So there's people that, at least on the state side, that are going a little bit beyond their comfort zone and reading all the documentations for mining and stuff. So they're just waiting for some type of viable thing to come out either on the continent of Africa or in the Caribbean that they can actually promote and get people on board to kind of build a system, as long as it's, a lot of times, a lot of us are looking for problem solving, type ventures. So they'll keep it in mind that, if you come across anything or whatever, we can come up probably with a project across different groups, and then, have people be the nuts and bolts of that. People of not waiting for the classes anymore, which is a very good thing. They're very much into kind of teaching themselves and reading what's going on in the Reddit forums and everything else, even though it's new to them, but they're willing to be, part of an infrastructure that really services, our problem solving, issues, as well.
And if I can piggyback on this, you make a great point. That's why the group that you formed is super amazing. God bless you on that. Thank you. It's a service. I know it's with all the things we got to do in life, the fact you think enough of us to create a place where we can curate these ideas, I think is super amazing. And thank you so much for that. At the end of the day, our message, even with our, we had a bus tour that we had in 2007, and we're having another one called I Love Black People Bitcoin bus tour, where we went around to historically black colleges and whatnot and sharing the good news about Bitcoin. This is before the price, as we were on the road, the price was going up and up and up. And we're going to have a new tour in 2018 that we're calling the I Love Black People blockchain bus tour. And we're going to be talking about more different projects beyond just Bitcoin. And that being said, is we think fundamentally in the marketplace, the technology should be the determinant of the winners and losers. Let me say it another way. Muammar Gaddafi, Robert Mugabe, many leaders have talked about a United States of Africa. And one of the components of that was a unified currency. And unfortunately, the conversation oftentimes was relegated to a political one, where folks were trying to debate whose currency should be one that's used and blah, blah, blah. And I think all politics suck. I've been involved in local politics and U.S. politics. And at the end of the day, I think all politicians, all of it sucks to me. But I think technology is a better vetter of these opportunities. Instead of trying to figure out the political winner of which currency to use, we just need to use the currency that works best. So there's going to be many projects that come out of the black community, hopefully. And I hope that the best technology and the best projects win. At the end of the day, on principle, we should be able to build things in a way that's not some type of Ponzi scheme, not trying to appeal to people's emotions just because I'm black and you're black. That's good. That's a start. Mm-hmm. We're in a common circumstance. Now, let's not get tricky with it. They don't pull us over because we Christian or Muslim. They're pulling over because we black. But now once we get that, we're a little sophisticated enough to understand what people's character is about. And what I've noticed, a lot of people that look like us, just as much as look like other people, are using this space to do scams and lie and misrepresent themselves. So in a real way, I tell people, on principle, deal with all this. And then the best technology should be the one that you use, the one that actually serves the purposes and needs that you are trying to obtain. You should use those. And that's what, we ultimately, if we look at doing an ICO or looking at our next funding round, we just finished our first seed funding round with a platform called Bank to the Future with Simon Dixon that was very helpful. And we're still looking, and we raised under that, we raised over $340,000, and because we're shrewd and good business people, we put most of that in Bitcoin back in October. So we've actually did quite well with our raise. And that being said, we're trying to make sure that other people understand how they can do the things that we've done. We're in Silicon Valley every month. Our law firm is Perkins Coie. That was one of the big things that we had to do, get a good law firm, because we were in the fintech. Regulation is important. We had to go through FinCEN. We had to go through a host of these regulatory reviews in order to get up and running. And on both sides, that's on the side where we cash out in Zimbabwe. We have a bank partner there called AgriBank, which is an indigenous local bank. And that's what we saw as a difference. The Barclays don't care to use, or the Bank of Americas don't care to use these technologies. But when you're dealing with like indigenous banks on the ground on the continent of Africa, they're looking for tech. A lot of them didn't know the technology would be available. It was like, well, we thought it'd be another 10 years before we have access to it. So when we bring these technologies to indigenous institutions that are vested in their community, they're more willing as financial institutions to at least be open-minded to see if there's a way that we can help them solve a problem. And cross-border transactions is a problem that indigenous banks have that are more so than these international conglomerates that were built off the colonizing of our people and committed crimes against humanity, like Barclays.
So what are the plans for the investment? What are some problem solving that needs to be done that you feel is not being done? And the second part of the question is, will BitMari only ever support Bitcoin, or are you looking at any other of the existing cryptocurrencies?
Okay, so one of the biggest things, like I said, we're doing in the low-hanging fruit is remittances. So we think there's a real opportunity with remittances. And what we're doing in remittances is one of the key things that we're helping create, because as a continent, Africa has the highest remittance fees than any other continent in the world. It has nothing to do with technology. It's because of what we just said about decolonize your life. Our premise and thesis is fundamentally to colonize it. Take race out of it. Take any of the things that make us cry or feel bad. We say fundamentally the colonizer has never been willing to fully compensate those they did business with. At the end of the day, the colonizer was never willing to compensate those that they did business with. They never were willing to give us equity or compensation for the things they robbed, killed, and stole. So that still is going on now on the continent. It's going on now in America. Black people still are being exploited for their labor, be it the football players and basketball players, or be it on the ground in Africa. So in a real way, what we're saying is that we're coming up with a technology alternative to the Western unions, to MoneyGrams, who are using this neo-colonial model to exploit wealth that's exaggerated with the fees they charge. We're actually charging a 4% fee in Zimbabwe. As we go off to these other African countries and Caribbean, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to actually lower the cost of these transactions to the point where it gets one day to zero. And then on top of that, we started a program called the Zimbabwe Women's Farmers Accelerator. And what we've done in that case is that we started off with 100 farmers, ended up with 80. We identified 80 farmers, and we put them in groups of 10 that were actually doing small-scale commercial farming. Now, these aren't subsistence farmers. These are real farmers that are producing produce in a way that's commercially driven, so they're making money. We were able to give them access to funding through a crowdfunding that we did, and we were able to distribute the funds to them using Bitcoin. So it would have been so difficult to send physical cash to 80 farmers throughout Zimbabwe using Western Union. It would have been expensive too. But when we used the blockchain Bitcoin, we were able to send them that value in minutes at best.
How were you able to avoid the recent spikes in miner fees?
So this is before the spikes in miner fees.
Okay.
Praise God. This was about like February last year. So our project was from December of last year, and we were distributing money all the way up until about February. Let me tell you, we got to put everything in context too. When you're in America, sending money to different places in America may not be expensive because you have different alternatives. When you're in some difficult parts of the world, compared to the alternatives, even when you see certain spikes in fees, Bitcoin is the best alternative. So let me say it no way. I just told you Africa has some of the highest, has the highest remittance fees, highest cross-border transaction fees than any other continent in the world. Mm-hmm. So when you compare to that backdrop, even with some of the delays, some of the fees, Bitcoin is a better alternative than what they currently have. And two, when you're in Africa, just as much as the borders were created by our colonizers, the currencies were created by the colonizers too. Mm-hmm. Just like the borders were created to benefit the trade for our colonizers, the currency is created to benefit the trade of the colonizer, not for the indigenous people. So most people, many people in the continent, when they're holding their local currency, they're actually only really useful locally. Let me say it another way. I was in Uganda earlier this year, and they have the Uganda shilling. I went to Rwanda at the airport and wanted to exchange my Uganda shilling. And Uganda and Rwanda share borders. Mm-hmm. These are bordering nations. I wanted to exchange my Uganda shilling for Rwanda francs. Well, the person said, we don't take Uganda shillings. Wow. We only take pounds, euros, and dollars. I'm like, that's your neighbor, though. What are you talking about? I just left, up the street. I'm at an international airport. They said, no, we don't accept that. Why? Because, again, as a store of value, these indigenous currencies in Africa suck. They're terrible. Mm-hmm. So even with all the things that people say, Bitcoin has a store of value, even with some of these transaction fees. And here's another thing. A lot of people are pumping these other coins to try to, and they kind of do these little slight jabs at Bitcoin on purpose. So let's unpack that. Bitcoin has the largest cap value, the largest network effect. And at the end of the day, it has the most ability to develop and change. Meaning with that capacity, with that amount of money, there's a lot more opportunity to build on that in a way that makes it beneficial. If you work on a project that's not worth a lot of money, people aren't going to spend a lot of time to improve it. But if you got a project that's worth now, that's one day soon going to be worth $1 trillion in market cap, then, people are willing to build on it. So with the SegWit that actually got approved, not the SegWit 2, but the SegWit that got approved, now they're going to be building Lightning on top of it so that people can now make quicker as well as cheaper transactions. That's just the beginning. That's not the end. That's, again, some people talk about some of the issues that have happened in the Bitcoin space as it being, not forming consensus or someone saying, let's go this way as being a flaw. But folks who've been in the Bitcoin space for some time realize that consensus is actually a feature. There's no centralized person. There's no Bitcoin Jesus for real. Like you might hear some Europeans calling themselves Bitcoin Jesus. I'm clear who Jesus is and who Jesus is not. Right. So I'm not praying to none of them. And at that being the point, we're not looking or waiting for that Bitcoin Jesus to come back either. So with that being said, we know that we can go through times where, there might not be consensus, but that is a great tool to move forward in an open source project like Bitcoin. And it will solve problems. The problems will be solved. The problem that I see in our community is that we're not doing enough engagement in the problem solving. The Bitcoin blockchain is really built on C++. We need more coders and developers. You don't have to go to college to be a coder or developer. If I don't leave anything on this, I want people to use BitMari. If you are pro-black, we're the blackest wallet in the world. If you're not using us, don't tell me you pro-black. Just say you like to talk black. But besides BitMari, any message I can put out there is that we need more black folks coding on blockchains, period. We don't need to wait for someone to make it better. It's an open source project. You can make it better.
Yeah, we're going to have a interview coming up on Thursday. It was kind of like a rush trying to get it before Christmas, but there's a company called Trust a Bit that is handling flight resolutions. It's a black company, like a majority of the people, the CEO black. We're going to talk to the CEO. It's a woman, Sarita Hines. So, I mean, a lot of our live streams are really just to really focus on people. I've been contacted so much behind the scenes that I'm like trying to put people in perspective and put them in the queue and actually further develop the live stream so they're better quality. But there's just so many people that are like, we've been ignored, we're here. And even the ones we've done before that, we just did Vulcanize CEO. He's a developer in Brooklyn, and all he does is peer-to-peer blockchains, and he doesn't really do any investing in ICOs. He said, the things you're saying here is actually echoed what he was saying from a developer about the pump and dumps and this, that, and the other thing. And his main thing is really about, developing developing that peer-to-peer blockchain. So we're hearing a lot of repeated themes with a lot of the people that have been in the space for a long time. So I only have one question. Those of you who are watching, if you have other questions, please send them now. But my last question is, can you explain to me BitMari's relationship with Uphold, the exchange that you mentioned, and what should Black people know about using Uphold and BitMari in combination or independently?
I think, first of all, again, thank you, sister, for this format and forum to bring us together. I think just like with the internet was early, people like yourself who are curating and connecting and touching people, it may sometimes not be a thankful job, but what you're going to get from these wonderful relationships that you're creating is like planting seeds. And no matter what bubble bust, people know that you were the person that gave them an opportunity to actually have a voice and to communicate. And our community is the type that will appreciate that. We will thank you. It may not be thankful right now all the time, but we will thank you.
I can't even take the credit. I mean, my background is journalism, but it was print. That was my original bachelor's degree. But Bob Ponce, who's Robert Ponce, he back in the early New York Silicon Alley days, because we both came out. I actually worked for one of those .coms that went under before Facebook and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of interfaced digitally on a similar platform as this group. But he was really doing a lot of interviews just across the board, Black, white, otherwise. But his archive is basically the evidence that Black people were involved in the early ages of the internet. And people still don't know Alan Emtage. They don't know Emmett McHenry. They don't know Henry Thompson, the one that created the lingo that makes this possible, computerized video possible. They don't even know, they still to this day don't know who these Black people are. And his take behind the scenes to me was like, look, you started this group, but you're going to have to start showing people. People don't like to read as much. They need to, as many times as we talked about BitMari, if it got 2 or 3 likes beforehand, but if you put it in the face and they hear a voice and they hear it coming from the founder or co-founder and they hear, the direction you're going, they'll spend more time and kind of, digest it a little bit more. So next time they see the written thing, then they'll respond to it a little bit more. So that hit was really his genesis to say, look, you got to do what we tried to do in the early days, and we got to do it better in terms of getting the content out there. But I do really want you to speak on Uphold because it was the first I've heard it from you when I was looking. I think I was reading the Cointelegraph article. I think you may have mentioned it, and definitely at the meetup that you had last night. And it's the first I'm hearing of a Black-owned exchange called Uphold. So I wanted to kind of key into what that relationship is, and how people in the group should take part in that as well.
So Uphold is definitely white owned.
Okay.
It's definitely ain't Black. God bless them. They've been amazing. They've been allies, and the founder is a guy named Halsey Minor.
Okay.
Who was one of the beginnings of CNET. Now, he's a progressive European, and I tell folks, in our work, we work with plenty of allies of different communities. But we're very clear when we work with folks, the terms of engagement, where our focus is on the African diaspora. We're unapologetic of it. Uphold was one of the sponsors of our I Love Black People bus tour. At the end of the day, our engagement and the terms and the way we are doing what we're doing is that we're building out for a community that we see is ours and is underserved and is being abused, and we're not going to take it anymore. So Uphold has been a great partner because they provide really the KYC that's difficult to do as a startup. So when you register with BitMari, we make sure you go through an Uphold process that allows us to verify your identity. And then from there, you can use Uphold's exchange to buy Litecoin, Bitcoin, Bitcash, Dash, BAT, even Voxel. There's about 6 or 7 coins they have, and they're going to have more come online. And that's, a relationship where we've built over time. That's one of the things that people rush into Bitcoin now. Since BitMari has been doing this since, as a company formally since 2015, and I've been in the space since 2013. What we've been able to do is build substantive relationships. So that's within the Black community as well as outside the Black community. But we've always been very clear about our objective and goals. And where those objectives coincide and agendas coincide, we work together with everybody.
Yeah.
Where they don't coincide, we say, God bless you, with two fingers, not one. That's what I'm trying to say. We got to stop having these fake, tacky relationships with folks. We just keep it 100. There's nothing wrong with if somebody has a gay agenda and you're trying to promote where that agenda can help us deal with some Black stuff, I'm cool with you. But if it doesn't, then I say, God bless you, and I wish you well. You know what I'm saying? So when you got an agenda, that's your thing. But we're clear about ours. Ours is about Black folks. And how can we end this oppression that's everywhere I go in the world? Somebody explain to me why my people at the bottom. And that's unacceptable. I'm sick and tired of that. I'm not overlooking it. I'm not going to act like it doesn't exist. Every country I go to, I see our people at the bottom.
Yeah,
we're amazed.
We've been criticized.
I travel as a tourist. I travel with something on my mind with a purpose. So in a real way, Uphold has helped us with our purpose. They've been super great. But we have great relationships. When we started with Brian Armstrong, one of my former employees went to school with Brian Armstrong. So we met Coinbase people when they just had a little office in a apartment building. We knocked on their door and they were like, crack the door. Who is it? You know, this is back in 2013 before they got their first big funding from Andreessen Horowitz. So we worked well with those folks. The Winklevoss twins, Cameron's been very helpful and supportive of us, and Gemini. You know, again, when you're in this space and people see the work that you put in, and especially when it wasn't cool, when it was crazy, when everybody said it was a scam as far as Silk Road, you know, the folks that have been through those moments, you know, black, white, or green, they kind of respect the fact you still made it. Because there's a lot of people who've been on this road. Like, even when you hear people say, I bought Bitcoin back when it was $12. And what they don't tell you is they sold when it was
$14. It was $14. I made $1.
They got out of it. That thing, so that thing hit that in. Oh, man, this can't go. So a lot of folks are talking about, they got in early. They didn't stay in. They got out. And so everybody don't tell the whole story. And all I'm trying to say is, at the end of the story, however this thing ends, it's been one heck of a ride. Come along and ride with BitMari. We're going to have some series of bus tours. We need folks in different
tell us
cities.
about the bus tour, yeah. Tell us about the bus tour.
So our bus tour, we identified folks who were interested in internships, learning more about Bitcoin, as well as folks willing to do remittances to different African countries. So through our tour, we had a brother named John Karanja, who has Bitcoin Hub. He'd be a great person on the show. He's from Kenya. Okay. He's worked with some of the best financial payment companies, and their incubator helped us as we got established. And we went around to different HBCUs. I went to Howard as well as Tuskegee, but we went to FAMU, Southern. And again, we partnered with folks at NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, and went around talking and touching these folks and sharing the good news about Bitcoin. We're going to be doing the same thing in 2018. So in a real way, we love, we can do this, maybe cooperate with you with your project. We can identify folks. Our last tour went south. We went like Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Florida. We're going to do a tour that kind of goes northeast and Midwest. If you have folks that are a part of your group, maybe we could do some live chats and have meetups as a part of the I Love Black People blockchain bus tour, and then use that as a way to promote what you're doing, promote what we're doing, and get people more engaged. We're actually going to be going through that process over the next few months. We'll probably go to South by Southwest and a host of other events, but that's a big deal for us. We're also going to be unveiling other countries that you can actually use cryptocurrency, the cash payout in other countries coming down the pipe. So we definitely need people to be aware of that. We got a documentary that's going to be coming out probably within the next month or so that actually talks about the work we're doing to better capture the points that you're making. We got a comic book that's going to be coming out where we're talking about, again, the images that we put out there regarding our participation in space. We always try to make sure we capture that. So that's a big deal. Like I said, ultimately, if there's people who are interested in using blockchain technology to invest in opportunities in Africa, we have our next round of women farmers that we're going to be working with. And because of SEC and different rules, it won't be an investment per se. What we use is what they call contract farming, where you actually be able to help these farmers by giving them advance payment of their for their corn or what have you, and then after they harvest it, you either receive your funds back in digital currency or you can put that money back into the next harvest. So we're going to be having that come out probably around March. You can be looking out for that. And we think digital commodities coupled with real commodities without ever touching fiat is going to be what we as the African diaspora can do better than anyone else, because Europe doesn't have the same access to real commodities, neither do many of these other places in the world. So our access as African Americans, coupled with the land and the commodities and brilliant minds on the ground in Africa, when we come together, that's going to be our secret sauce. It's putting together the indigenous African mind with the African American mind. So we think that's going to be a big a part of our success. And you can go on BitMari.com if you're interested in joining us, participating. You want to do any type of referral programs. If you have any ideas or you want to help us build some of these things, definitely open to it. I don't know what else to say, but thank you, sister.
We're gonna be on board. We're actually we're working behind the scenes to create a spin-off group that could really formulate business and investments and, well, not just investments, but business type projects to bring to the larger group without changing the vibe of the group, and kind of recruit from within the group of people who are interested in different projects. So definitely, this is definitely up our alley. We only have one more question from the feed. Sundiata is asking, does your exchange have IRS regulations like Coinbase? Because that's why people are trying to get away from them. That's the full statement.
So the exchange that we have hasn't been subpoenaed, but Coinbase has. But let's be very clear: any of these licensed and regulated exchanges can have that happen.
Right.
So this is what I tell people, and this is and I've done bad in business and I've done amazing in business. So I tell people, whatever you do, follow the rules. We are smart enough and brilliant enough to be amazing in spite of the rules. But follow the rules. If your business model doesn't allow you to make enough money to pay your taxes, it's not a good business model. Your business model should be able to take care of any liabilities, payroll, whatever it is, if it's a good business. Pay that or leave. And this is another thing. Slavery is over. If you don't want to do it, go somewhere else. And many of these companies have actually gone offshore and done other things. But what we're doing, just going back to your point, we know as black folks, I don't care where we go, they're going to come get us. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to end up like Marcus Garvey. We want to be Marcus Garvey, but we want to learn from Marcus Garvey. Our government did to Marcus Garvey. When I say our tax dollars paid for all these three-letter organizations. What was done, we need to learn from it. Pay our taxes. Make sure that we have law firms and lawyers that we have already on board who are reputable, who understand the rules. That is key. When we start talking about these business models, one of the things you need to be asking, what law firm represents them? What are they doing to make sure that they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's? We don't need, and this is what I'm so concerned about, these Ponzi schemes. is very fragile. I'm an activist in my earlier life, and the worst thing to do is get people up and ready to go, and then bad things happen and you weren't prepared. Because the next time you need to get these people organized, they may not be willing. So if we got now people interested in this technology, and we let them all get pimped out by these pump and dump schemes and these Ponzi schemes, when we go back to those folks and start talking about Bitcoin, it won't be like now where people are just so interested in this new thing. There's going to be people saying, I remember and then it's going to be all bad. Mm-hmm. So we got to be vigilant. Our freedom is not a destination. It's something that we got to always covet and actually be vigilant and protect it. So don't let us, be in this moment where we're talking about this technology like it's here to save us. We got to save ourselves. Use what our grandmama taught us. Use your head, discernment when you're dealing with these things. And I think making sure in the fintech arena that you're following the regulatory authorities the best you can. Now, once you get into crypto, it's different. But when you're touching any fiat currency, you need to make sure that you're going by all the rules that are governed. And when you come out of your crypto, you need to make sure you're going by all the rules. And that's why so many people stay in crypto and want to build a space where there's more crypto in it. And part of what BitMari is going to do, and we saw this on our bus tour, we're going to get more Black-owned businesses. We were working with a group that helped out with Black businesses out of Chicago. And our thing is that, we're trying to get as many of these Black-owned businesses to download a BitMari wallet. Because the first thing people would say is, okay, I got this Bitcoin, what do I do with it? Mm-hmm. Now with the value going up so much, everybody knows what to do. They hold on to it. But for the transactional value, which is what we're really into as a payment platform, what we've seen is that it's really good to take advantage of the lack of chargebacks, a host of good opportunities to use Bitcoin for, and cryptocurrency. And we think that's another arena that we hope your supporters, the people watching you, and we'll be active in getting more, not just indigenous businesses, but African American businesses to download a BitMari wallet or any wallet they choose. I want them to use BitMari, but getting people in the systems, the user adoption is the biggest issue. Getting people to understand.
Two more BitMari specific questions. I'm going to combine Farika's question with Techiner's question. But the two questions are, do hardware wallets interact with your wallet? And Techiner's question is, can we move coins from Coinbase directly to the BitMari platform?
Yeah, I would tell people to have multiple wallets, depending on your use cases, and give yourself the, again, the diversification of how you're storing it. It's just a matter of taking creating a wallet and your public key, your public address, using that to move your Coinbase or from your hard wallet to your BitMari wallet. It has the same functionality. You have a QR code, or you can cut and paste your public key. You can create new public keys however you see fit, but your public key, it's just like your bank account. No one can use it to get money out of the account, but they can actually use it to put money in the account.
Gotcha. Well, Sinclair, I really appreciate this conversation. It definitely hit on a number of issues that have been floating around in the group, and hopefully will raise awareness about BitMari. I look forward to working with you in the future, and definitely calling from the group, getting some people interactive, and I know that Bob is not saying it, but he's definitely the blackest wallet in the world. He's definitely going to want a Harlem stop. He lives in Harlem, so he's going to want a Harlem stop for that tour that's coming up in the Northeast. And then we will get started. And just to remind our listeners. See, I haven't even shouted out my sorrows of that same crimson and cream Delta Sigma Theta. Gotta keep it crimson and cream. You can be a dreamer if you want to, but I got 22 who knew what to do. No disrespect. It's all panhellenic love. I don't want to get my watchers like James Ravenel upset when he's going to throw up alpha in a minute. So we don't want to get anybody upset, but it is what it is. It is what it is. But again, a reminder to our listeners, we have another chat coming up. We're going to get that flyer out before the end of the day. We're going to be interviewing the CEO of Trust a Bit, Sarita Hines, on Thursday at 10:30 a.m. And then definitely this one will be archived. We like to keep things in a group for a while. It's going to stay in the group for at least a week or maybe a week and a half. And then we'll throw it up on the public Facebook page as well as the newly created YouTube channel. But we're trying to give you guys a leg up. Reach out to Sinclair, find out what's going on. Don't wait for us. Let's get it rolling. And, hopefully we can make some inroads and make a difference, not only on the African continent, but a lot of what you're saying is also reflected between Caribbean nations as well, not being able to send remittance to one another and from the United States, etc. So thank you so much. A lot of people saying, love my people. You know it well. This was awesome. So, definitely tune in and watch the comments later if you wouldn't be able to see it live. And thanks again. Take care.
All right. Thank you.